microphone back in place. Okay, roll call, Mayor Kratzky, I am present. Groko?
Present.
Kufal?
Present.
Padilla?
Present.
Rose?
Present.
Eager?
Here.
Okay. We don't have any changes for the agenda tonight that I'm aware of, so we need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion from Eager. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rose. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to comments, updates, and concerns. Do we have any citizens here that would like to speak tonight? Not seeing anything. Any updates from council members? I'm just going to mention, some of you might have gotten an email from Kristen Burgess about some handicapped accessible signs, and those were, she wanted the email read at tonight's meeting, but rather than read it, I'll just update everyone that those signs were installed today. So that's no longer an issue or a concern. And Steve let her know that those signs were installed. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other updates from council members? And then for city staff, I know we have Chief Eichten that would like to speak, so I'll invite him up.
That's under communications.
Oh, that's under communications? I'm sorry. I was thinking that was under comments. Anyone, any other city staff have any comments, updates, or concerns? Okay. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda and take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion from Eaker. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Groko. Any discussion about tonight's consent agenda? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearings, we don't have any scheduled tonight. So now we have, to communication requests and petitions. And now I will invite Chief Eichten up to the podium.
Thank you. Why doesn't everybody kind of come up front so everyone can see you, kind of gather around, find whatever spot you can sit in or stand in, so everyone can get a good look at how beautiful you are. So yes, I have a certificate of commendation for everyone here tonight. Just kind of got to give the background of what the call was. And I typed it out so you guys can kind of follow along. On October 16th, 2024, shortly after 7 p.m., Gaylord PD was dispatched to an address in town regarding a domestic dispute where the female had called 911. The officer met with the female victim at her home and learned her boyfriend had already left or fled on foot. Officers learned the male was intoxicated, had assaulted the female, and had smashed a glass table in front of their children before he left. While the officer was still on scene and speaking with the female victim, the male suspect called her, and she gave the phone to the officer. The male on the phone taunted the officer, informed the officer that he could see him from a distance away, said he wanted to fight the officer, and advised that he was carrying several knives. The suspect is a known felon with a history of violence. It was also now learned that the suspect may also be in a black Chevy Impala. Other agencies came to town to assist, which is everyone you see standing here, including the New Ulm Police Department, who used their canine in an attempt to locate and track the suspect. The suspect continued to call the female 31 times in total, also called the police department threatening and taunting the officers. Officers ended up checking several locations for him and also a neighboring house, and were not able to locate him at that time. Around 10 p.m., about 3 hours later, a Gibbon officer observed a black Chevy Impala circling the victim's house. The Gibbon officer was able to identify the driver as the male suspect that we're looking for. A short pursuit initiated through town, and the male finally pulled over after eluding officers for a few blocks. Another agency ended up boxing in the car so they couldn't leave. The male exited the vehicle, squared off with law enforcement, and was threatening officers and also threatened New Ulm's canine. After numerous attempts were given to the suspect and the canine was almost deployed, the suspect finally surrendered and was taken into custody without any further violence. Located in the vehicle were open containers of alcohol, a large amount of marijuana, and a knife which was on the front seat. The Sibley County Sheriff's Office assisted by completing the DUI portion of the incident, including the search warrant, while other officers were able to focus more on the victim and completing the domestic portion of the call. Eventually, a successful blood draw was taken by Officer Kniefel, who is also a certified phlebotomist. During the incident, every officer and deputy that was working in the entire county that night, including New Ulm PD, assisted with searching for and apprehending the suspect. Charges for the suspect included felony fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle, gross misdemeanor domestic assault due to previous convictions of assault and violence. And then all the rest are misdemeanors, DUI, disorderly conduct, driving after revocation, and narcotics and related offenses. And then the suspect was eventually convicted. Officers that assisted this evening, in no particular order, we have Gaylord Officer Robert Kniefel, Sibley County Sergeant Mitch Sefker, Deputies Cody Tice and Jason Lennertz, Gibbon Officer Jacob Hansen, Winthrop Officer Nicholas Eichchen, who is not present. Chief Logan Anderson is here on his behalf. Henderson Officer and part-time Gaylord Officer Daniel Koski, Arlington Officer Stephanie Kavari, and New Ulm Officer Andrew Kister and his canine partner Hank. It was a collaborative team effort. Everyone worked well together to resolve a challenging situation that could have significantly or escalated significantly without everyone's support. Therefore, I'm presenting everyone tonight with a certificate of commendation for demonstrating outstanding dedication and commitment to public safety. Thank you all very much. I believe Joe would like to take a picture out on the front steps. Okay. So once you guys come this way, I'll give you the certificates as you come on out. I guess it'd be helpful to have them in order. Robert? Well, I'll just go out with you. We can get the council meeting continue on. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Before you guys leave, we just want to thank you all for your service in keeping our community safe. I work with many of you in my daytime job, and you guys are a great group of people and hard workers, so thank you for your service.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next on our agenda is Plant Yourself in Gaylord, and we have Angie Weber here tonight. So welcome, Angie.
Thank you for having me. Steve wanted me to do the annual talk of the festivity coming up. We're really excited about it. Seems like the years go by faster and faster, and I was just here. Really excited about the venue this year. We've got a couple new things that we're introducing. We're going to have the first ever Build-A-Burger contest. Emmanuel Lutheran is going to be kind of the collaborating sponsor of that. We've got 9 children signed up, which is kind of fun. And there'll be some adults supervising and so forth, and really cute little grills that they're going to get to, they won't get to keep, but they'll get to cook on them, so they'll have their own individual space. They'll be judged, and then they'll be announced at the barbecue award announcements. And then we're going to have Bayside Bingo. Bayside has been really instrumental in supporting these events and sponsoring. So we're doing the bingo with their name attached to it because they're also sponsoring a band. This year we have 24 registered barbecue contestants. Kind of exciting. We have 2 coming from out of state, one from Nebraska and one all the way from Louisville, Kentucky. So that's kind of fun too. I don't know if they've called in. They were going to call in about camping. If not, they're probably either staying in the hotel or some of them have been lodging in their trailers on the streets. So that is one of the things that's kind of exciting. Another thing that's kind of exciting, and I didn't realize it when I did it in January, I thought, well, we'll just kind of keep it a little bit more lower key this year, see what happens. I thought we'll have underdogs be the main performer because they do a good job and they're really fun. And prior to that, I'd reached out to Foreplay, and they said that they were booked. Well, they called me back and they said that they would be able to play for this year, and they're looking at next year as well. And then I was just working on a few things one night, and my daughter said, "Who do you got for the band?" And I said, "Oh, have you ever heard of Foreplay?" And, "Oh my gosh, Mom," and she was so excited because I guess it's a bigger band. So taking that into consideration, I kind of looked at the logistics of things and kind of looked at Nisen's parking lot because I was a little bit concerned about the room there. I think it'll be just fine. And I had talked to Steve, and he said to bring it before the board to make sure that everything, that everybody's in the know. In the event of rainy weather, fingers crossed, it's a beautiful day, we'd like to have it at the pavilion as an or as a inside area. I'm confident that there's enough space there. They perform at some of the Legions, like at La Center, River Bottom, is it River Bottom in Henderson? Is that what, yeah,
believe
River Bottom, they've played there. And I know that they're kind of venturing into some smaller venues. So I kind of wanted your blessings for that. Again, there'll be a beer tent on Nisen's property. And everything's kind of lining for it to be a fun day. And as I look around the room, Lynn is going to be taking tickets again, and Don and Steve are going to be announcing the award winners. If you're back, Don.
I should be back pending a flight delay, so.
Yeah. So just lots of fun things going on, and it's the day that we kind of kick off beautifying Gaylord. I don't know if you saw it, but it did look like we had some gophers coming up over there this last weekend, but it's really root bound, so we wanted to make sure, because the last couple of years we've kind of noticed that the flowers aren't thriving as they should be. So we earth augured it and made nice holes and put some fresh dirt in there for the flowers to plant so that they look really beautiful downtown. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know if you guys have any questions or.
Really, thank you for all you do. You do a great job for our city. And
Oh.
always make it look beautiful.
Between
Thank
that
you.
and the holiday lights.
Yeah.
Put a lot of work into
Thank you.
keep things going, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's really nice just having that kickoff to summer and to our nice weather, and Plant Yourself in Gaylord is just one of my favorite events, so thanks for all you do.
Like I said, fingers crossed. I looked at one weather and it said 2 inches of rain. I don't know if it's just playing with us. And then I looked at another and it said 75 and sunny. So we'll take the 75 and sunny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did you have something, Steve, that you wanted me to?
Just is it the same setup out here again?
So this year, we're honing back on the vendors, because I found that a lot of people were duplicating product, and that it wasn't a win-win for everybody. So this year, instead of having 44, we're having 24. Some of the vendors are gonna be at Goldsmith parking lot, and then some will be at Red Brick Properties. And then we'll have the barbecuers going up and down the street, kind of in the intersection, maybe down just a little bit. So that'll be kind of the same area. And I think you guys have a little map as well with that attached, so.
Yes, it's in the
Yeah.
packet.
So, and I don't think graduation weekend is this weekend, so I think that we should have a good turnout. We've been advertising and stuff, so should be good.
Okay, any other questions for Angie? Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Other things under agenda item number 8 is the chess club, author Mary Perrine coming to the library bingo for Plant Yourself in Gaylord, author Jim Jensen, another library activity, and then the senior center newsletter. So next we'll move on to department and committee reports and action items. And the first department on the agenda is the Public Works. So if Ty is here, invite him up.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
The first thing I have on the agenda is to approve crack sealing bids for this year. We received 2 quotes for crack sealing. Nielsen Blacktop came in at $2.88 per pound, and Bargain came in at $2.92 per pound. Last year, the price was $2.90 a pound with Bargain, so they increased a little bit, but Nielsen's below them. So just asking council to approve the quote from Nielsen Blacktop for $2.88 a pound for $20,000 worth of crack sealing.
Just got a quick question. Do they, looking at the 2 bids there,
Yep.
Nielsen's pretty brief there on what they're doing compared to Bargain. Do they do the same? I mean, if you look at the one from Bargain, they got a lot of rounding out cracks of different widths and cleaning them out, and it looks like they're indicating they're doing a lot of stuff. I'm just wondering how that compares.
Yeah, they write a lot of that stuff down. That almost all those crack sealing companies all have machines that grind it and clean those cracks out, like a 1 inch wide by 1 inch deep.
I figured they did. I
Yep,
was just
yep.
curious because theirs is so much more thorough than the other one,
Yep.
so.
Any other questions for Ty? We need a motion to approve crack sealing quote from Nielsen Blacktop at $2.88 per pound not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Eker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who wants that one? Kuf-
I
oh,
don't.
Seconded by Kufal. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The second thing I have is our 2025 seal coating project for this year. We received 2 quotes for that. We'll be doing 11,150 square yards of streets this year. Those roads are 5th Street and Jefferson, which we did a 1-inch overlay last year. 1 block of 9th Street from Oxford to Penn, and 3rd Street South and Shoreview Avenue South at the south end of town that we did a couple years ago. We received 2 bids, one from Pearson Brothers, which was $32,000.50, and Allied Blacktop, which was $40,140. We have $40,000 budgeted, so we're about $8,000 less under budget, so that's a good thing. Just asking council to approve the quote from Pearson Brothers in the amount of $32,000.50.
So moved.
We have a motion from Eker to approve the seal coating quote. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rose. Any further discussion?
Just make sure they're covering up like the manholes and stuff. Like, I know they kind of said it here in the request for budget,
Yeah,
or for quotes. I just know that gets forgotten about, it seems like once in a while, and it's
right,
a pain in the butt.
and the shut-off valves and stuff.
Yeah, so
Okay, yep,
I think a couple of years ago, there's a contractor that forgot.
yeah,
I know there's a couple of them that we struggle to get open, so.
right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do you have any updates on I&I for us?
Yes, I do. I have a presentation for you.
Oh, nice.
Yep, Or you wanna, let's see. Okay. So this presentation is just some findings. Our total sewer mains televised, total footage, total amount of lateral lines televised, that total footage, and total laterals that we were unable to televise, and the total intrusions found. I'll list some examples, show you some examples of what those intrusions look like, some short videos, some written reports, what the reports that we get look like, and just some options, types of possible repairs that customers will be able to do, and just some examples of what some other cities are doing, so. So this is the area that was televised, all in orange there. Some of the lines were not televised because they didn't have any services hooked to them. They were just straight pipes, so we didn't televise those. They did 46 sewer main inspections. They inspected 11,300 feet of main pipe. They did 182 lateral services, and that length was 12,638 feet. And after all was said and done, the report we got was 338 pages and all the video that they took. We had 35 lateral lines that were unable to advance in the televising due to various issues such as muck, roots. The lateral cured in place liner had bunched up on the end so they couldn't get the camera through. A couple sharp bends in the pipes, or a bad saddle connection right at the sewer main. We found approximately 30 drain tile intrusions into the sanitary sewer. Here are a couple samples. So this is a factory made tile connection. This line actually has 2 separate connections to it. So this factory made, it was actually placed in there for that purpose, to connect tile lines when the house was built. And there's the other one. and those are 4-inch lines. So this is the next one. This is a hammer in, they call it. It's basically somebody punches a hole in it and connects a tile to it, to the line. And that is the line coming out of the foundation there, sewer line. And there's the tile line hooked up to it. As you can see, somebody just broke a hole. And here's the last one. This actually has 2 break-ins right next to the foundation. Not all of them are that bad, but there are various styles and hole sizes. It depends who did it. Okay, so on a main line report, the sewer main, this is kind of what the report looks like. Everything is detailed out. This is a little bit closer view. You can kind of read what that is. It tells if there's any problems, where the taps are, how much, if there's a sag in the line, that kind of thing. And this is a lateral report. When they televise somebody's lateral line, it's a little bit closer view. And this is actually the line that had the 2 factory-made taps in it. So that's what we get on our reports that we look through, and so we can kind of tell what's going on. So types of repairs that people can do, and I kind of tried to make this as sweeping as I could. So there is an option for slip lining or cured in place pipe. It's a possibility if the right conditions are met. Slip lining a pipe is putting a pipe inside of another pipe. Cured in place pipe is what we did when we did the project on the north end. They send a sock that's coated with resin, they blow it up and it hardens. It would be possible to do that if you had to go underneath a deck or a big concrete slab or something like that you don't want to disturb. The downside is it's more difficult to find a contractor to do it because it's not typically commonly done on the house side. It's usually done from the main, from a break to the main. It's usually not done through the house. The other downside is tile lines would not be redirected. They'd just be cut off right there, so there'd be nowhere for them to go. It's not a real common practice, but it is an option. Tile disconnected and relocated to a sump pump. This is by far the most common method. This is where the tile line is dug up where it hooks into the sanitary. The lines are disconnected and the sewer line's patched to seal out the old connections. Then the tile line is redirected through the foundation to a sump pump basin in the basement. Tile lines can be connected to an outdoor sump pump instead of run to the basement, but it's not very common in this area because of the weather and the freezing. This is just a kind of visual representation of that. The third option, the tile disconnected sanitary sewer patch. In this one, the tile line is dug up where it's connected, just like the other one. The sanitary sewer line is patched and the tile lines are just capped. They aren't redirected. Usually this method, plumbers don't like this method. Some people don't like it, but it has been done here a couple times that I've seen. And it's probably the least costly because you're not talking drilling another hole into your basement and putting a sump pump. So those are kind of the options there that we have, or they have. I just put this in here just to inform you guys of what some cities are doing. Some of the cities have an actual repair program. A few of those set aside money to assist in the repair. One city I found offers $750 towards the repair. Out of all of these, probably the most common one I saw is if they offer incentives, they usually cover 50% up to $2,500 for the repair, but they usually have a limit on the repair, so they'll say the first 10 applicants of the year get that assistance. One city, given it's a bigger city, offers 80% up to $4,000. Most of the cities, if not all, have some kind of ordinance forbidding drain tile in the sanitary sewers. And it is actually, on a new construction, it's illegal by the plumbing code, so just to give you some ideas of some options, if you were to take that, you don't have to, but I figured I'd throw that in there just to, so you know what some of the other cities are doing. And that's all I have.
Is there any way we can post the PowerPoint on our city website so people can see it, have an idea what it looks like? So if there's questions on it, they can just go to our website and view it.
I can find out if I can.
Okay.
I don't see why I should be able to convert it into something and make it like a movie type of thing. So,
Yeah, it'd be pretty neat.
yeah, definitely can do that. But, does anybody have any questions about any of that? I know we ran through some of it kind of quick.
Do you have like a rough estimate per cost of the different
So,
types?
the one, I'm not gonna say who, it was a plumber, but I'm not gonna say who, but they said if you dug down, cut the tile lines, ran it to a sump pump in the basement, it's usually around $5,000,
Okay.
5,000, 5,500. Right
To
there.
run it to a sump pump or put
Yeah,
in a
to
sump
put
pump?
in a sump pump, well, they'd redirect it into the basement, put in a sump pump.
Put in the pit, everything?
Yep. So, that's what he kinda estimated. Because most of your plumbers, if that type of work is required, they usually call a contractor to actually do the digging. Whether it's Jewel out of Hutch or Jerpy out of Hutch or whoever, yep, so. Like I said,
Will all the options be available to the homeowner though? Are they gonna choose which route they wanna go?
Yeah, we can give them kind of the information, they'll have to hunt it out. Like I said, the slip lining, especially in the cured in place pipe, I've heard of it being done, but I haven't actually found anybody around locally that does that. But I have heard of it being done, it is a possibility, so, yeah. Anybody else?
I believe they make be kind of a slip line, or not so much a slip line, but it's like the opposite of a band clamp on a water line, where you slip it inside and it expands it.
Expanding band, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, I can't remember I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, so I don't know if like Core Main or Ferguson or somebody would maybe have a little
I should
information
talk to
on.
some of them guys, they would probably know, cause they're more of a commercial deal, I'm sure Core and Main sells to a lot of people, so.
I mean, you'd still have to get,
Or Ferguson or
yeah,
somebody.
you'd still have to probably dig up the line and get, but like you said, if it's under a deck or under the footing, you can maybe dig out in the yard and,
Right,
I mean,
they'd be
it
able to
might
push
be
it through,
cheaper too.
yeah, so.
What is the plan for those ones that you couldn't televise at this point?
I think the only option is to go televise it from the clean out in the basement and run a camera, a couple feet or whatever out to the foundation and see if it sees anything.
Do they have a timeline when we're gonna start to do that?
Yeah, I don't have a timeline. I suppose we'll have to contract somebody that's a plumber that's got a camera and stuff like that can record.
Yeah, and I imagine it's gonna be difficult trying to schedule all those things with people as well.
Right. I can talk and see what the cost with something like that would be, just from a couple guys, just to get some idea.
It was really interesting watching those videos, cause I didn't know what the intrusion was until.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to visualize. I know I sent some snapshots of some of those
Yeah.
videos, and those are just a couple kinds. There's all different kinds of stuff like that, so, depending on what size. So, everybody does a little bit different,
Yeah.
so. Anybody got anything else?
I just have one last question, I'm sorry. I know, we're gonna go late. With regards to that camera, is there still, would there still be any kind of use if we did buy that, a camera, so that we could do the ones, the 30 or so that were unable, or 35?
A camera for us?
Yeah,
Leighton, do you guys have a camera? I think they're, what are they, $12,000, $13,000?
13 to 15, kind of depending.
that.
I think ours was like 13.8 from up in Alexandria, can't remember the name, Jetline.
Yeah, yep.
it just seems like it'd be a big benefit, not just for that, but for projects coming down the road.
Right.
Well, and at 30 units, I mean, that's about $500 a house. And then, you know, Alex and Ty could go over there maybe and just do it as they call in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of them, there's clean outs that are pretty easy. Some of you'd probably have to take the toilet up, that kind of thing. So it's one of those things we should have our ducks in a row before we start doing something like that. So we kind of know what we're doing.
yeah, figure out what the cost would be for a plumber to do a house or to do one
Yeah.
line. You know, if it comes out to
I'll ask a
$500
cou-
bucks.
I'll ask a couple different places and see what the cost would be.
Plus, if we're doing the rest of the city and you run into that elsewhere,
Right,
then might be ahead in the long run.
right. Well, at least with this video that we did get, you know, if a customer complains that, you know, like Justin and I were talking earlier, you know, if somebody has a tile line, they want to get it fixed, well, I want to see the video of the rest of my line. If it's garbage, they might just choose to fix the whole thing at once. So it's nice to be able to present them with a whole video of their actual line, so that's also helpful. So,
Well, if we send out letters to get these fixed, yeah, inform them, hey, we have a video. If there's some way to,
right.
you know,
We can
share
get them
it.
the video and actually get them the paper report also. Yep. So. All right.
Thanks, looks
You
great.
bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. That was very helpful.
Just a reminder, or not reminder, but refresher. According to our ordinance, once we do give notice, they have 90 days.
To fix it?
That's it. Unless you want to change it, but that's what our code currently states right now. Once we give them written notice.
That's something we can, once you get more information. I don't think we're at that point yet.
I think we
Just
should
send out-
have a conversation about what, are we gonna offer any incentives or help any assistance? You know, we've kind of thrown that around at meetings, but I don't know if we've ever come to a concrete decision what we're gonna do. So before we notify people, we should probably have our, you know, that information figured out.
See how big of a problem it is.
Yeah, even if you gave like a $700 incentive for the 30 of them, that's like 21 grand.
But a lot of these people, you know, they bought their house not knowing this was a problem. And to expect them to come up with $5,000 in 90 days, but yet this has to get fixed. So I think we just gotta brainstorm for possible solutions.
At the end of the day, it saves the city money in terms of pumping at the lift stations and dealing with backups and all that stuff, so. Kind of a balance, like Tony said, even if it's $700. I'm just throwing a number out there, but figure something out. Kind of a give take.
Or we could always just offer finance options too.
And I think that's what we kind of talked about, like, assessments, basically. So that they could pay it back gradually. I think that's kind of what we talked about, but we should probably firm that up.
Ty, that higher dollar amount one, was that a town up towards the cities a little farther? That $4,000 one?
I think actually that was a city in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay, because,
I had to look like through 3 states to try to find somebody that has a published actual program that kind of tells. I looked in Iowa, there's a couple in Iowa, a couple in Wisconsin, 1 or 2 here.
I was just curious, it's kind of an outlier, because I think Waconia is doing something like that.
Yeah.
But they get fined from the,
Yes, so Steve and I actually talked, the one that did the 80% 4,000, what they did was, when they started, they did the 80% 4,000, and when people are notified, 2 years later, they dropped it down to 54. So they kind of encouraged you to start getting it done and applying for that financing. So the longer you wait, the less you're gonna get in assistance, kind of, is how they did it. So,
If somebody sells their house now, will the new owner be made aware of the issue?
that has to be something that should be certified. Towns do that it needs to be inspected. And that way the buyer needs to know that, yeah.
Is that something we can do going forward? I mean, for any home sales in Gaylord that, because I think the county requires it for septic tanks.
Right,
You have to have
I'm sure we
inspections.
could do something like that, or have an ordinance that requires that, yeah.
Because they don't, like if somebody has a home inspection, that's probably something that's not looked at.
Right, yeah,
Home
very
inspection
rarely,
if they
very
hire-
rarely, yeah. Unless somebody's, the buyer's really got
Smart and ask
smart,
for it.
yeah, and ask the right questions, yeah. Yeah, that's most people, most buyers don't even think of something like that, so. Yeah. I can, if you want, I can look back at some of those cities that actually have the program, because a lot of it's written out, dates and, you know, procedures and that kind of stuff, and kind of give you guys some written information that you could maybe go off of if you want. I can
Yeah.
give that to Steve and have him distribute that for you. So, that way at least you got something to look at and kind of know what people are, if you're gonna go that route, so.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Right?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ty. Okay, moving on to our next department on the agenda, the police department. So Chief Eichten can come up to the podium.
Apparently you all wanted me to give you guys each one of these
Oh.
before.
Hank?
He helps us out quite a
Oh,
bit.
thank you. That's adorable. My water bottle.
Sorry, I thought I was over this, but apparently it's coming back. Excuse me. First item I have tonight would be the habitual nuisance / parking violations. Kind of a little history background. There's some businesses in town, some residents that we keep dealing with over and over again for, you know, nuisance violations. Currently, we issue them a $50 administrative citation. For some people / businesses, apparently that's not enough fine for them to actually clean up their property after we cite them. They pay the ticket, or some of them pay the ticket, and then, you know, they don't do anything, and then we give them another $50 ticket, and they don't do anything, we give them another $50 ticket. So I guess what I'm looking for is some discussion, two parts. First would be discussion to see if we can come up with some sort of a escalating fine amount. If we, kind of what we had discussed was, you know, maybe 12 months. You know, if we deal with them, you know, once we cite them, we deal with them again, you know, the next time the fine doubles. Kind of came up with an example that doesn't have to be it, just kind of a starting point. And then the second point would be, the second debatable topic would be, you know, if we do give them a citation and they pay it, but they don't clean up their property, how long do we wait until we issue them a second citation? Right now, there's no real set time frame. So I think that'd be a good talking point to come up with that. My thought, I guess, was maybe a week, 7 days. Ultimately, you know, I'll defer to the council, whatever you guys decide, but, you know, we give somebody a ticket, they pay it, but they don't clean up their property. Now, or next time, we're, you know, wait 7 days, then give them the, you know, the second offense at the $100 fine, and see if that can't get them to do it, and kind of aggregate it within a 12-month period. I guess those are kind of my thoughts. Steve and I have talked about, it's kind of what we came up with together, and now we're just looking for some council input and what your guys' thoughts might be on that.
I had reached out to Steve earlier because I thought that we had something that kind of covered this with the fees per day when somebody doesn't comply, but apparently that doesn't apply to ordinances, correct?
He's referring to our administrative fine. In this case, I don't believe it would apply, because we do have an alternative already, that we're setting a fee, or a fine, I should say, in our fee schedule for these kind of things, which is $50. So we do have an avenue that we've already established, something like this, versus where the administrative fines, we generally use those, I know zoning, our zoning code comes to mind, that's what we've used it for, in the past, one time that we've done it, we've used it for that. Mainly because if there's a zoning violation, we don't have like a set fine for something like that. Certainly, it's like a misdemeanor or something that we could do that, but $50 per day, that seems to apply better, whereas this, we have something established. And maybe this would be a time for me to stop and maybe let you respond to it.
Sure, so we have this ordinance which talks about nuisance and parking, and then we have a broader administrative fines ordinance that talks about all the other ordinances and how we can essentially administratively fine violators. So this ordinance probably does, as Steve said, take precedence over the general administrative fines ordinance. So at the very least, though, I think we probably don't want to have two separate administrative fines apparatuses in our ordinance as it relates to this issue. So whether we want to just go with the general administrative fines, or if we want to utilize our specific ordinance, probably need to do some work on this, just so that there isn't confusion about what exactly are we implementing to enforce. You know, I think this is probably a pretty workable solution to have it step up, and that sort of specificity isn't in the general administrative fines ordinance. So I guess if council wants to take this specific sort of surgical approach to enforcing these issues, then this is probably the best way to go. Versus the other administrative fines ordinance. It is sort of geared more, as Steve was saying, towards zoning violations, and, you know, kind of finding people on a per day basis. And that might be, I guess it would be up to council to decide, but I don't know that when Steve and I drafted that ordinance, we necessarily had circumstances like this in mind. So I think we probably need to do some work to figure out a better way to reach these certain property owners in town that are creating nuisances. And I guess from my perspective, I think this makes a lot of sense because it isn't overly punitive. At first, it's $50, that's what we've always done. But for the people that just doesn't resonate with, which there's definitely a demographic of these people that $50 doesn't necessarily matter to them, it becomes stepped up each time. So I think my understanding is that the police department staff were feeling a little helpless on this issue because people just weren't responding. And I think this would be a pragmatic way to perhaps give a little more tools in their toolbox. So does that answer your question?
It does. I guess I'm just looking at it from the standpoint, if this guy gets 5 tickets, hypothetically, and then they go to court and it gets dropped on the 1 ticket, then it seems like that happens a lot, where these other tickets will get dismissed and only 1 will go through, versus if you're assessing them every single day, the way the general ordinance is written, then that will go against their taxes, right, ultimately?
Potentially.
That's like it just seems like it's a little harsher and has stronger roots than continuing to go over there and deal with them over and over again. I don't know.
I did talk to our city attorney about this, Ken Jansen.
Yeah.
Our criminal city attorney. He basically said, if you write them a state citation, we can't go for, what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank here. Basically, we can't go for, not restitution, but for lack of a better word, restitution. Mm-hmm. But if you write them an administrative citation and they're not paying it, then we can essentially come up with a plan and tell him, because it's a misdemeanor offense, he can force them to come to court, and we can say you have 7 unpaid tickets, the total cost is, whatever, $600. And Ken said then he can request that in court and make them pay that $600. So we just have to have an understanding with Ken that, hey, we're not plead guilty to one, dismissing the other 3 or 4 or 5. That's not going to happen. And Ken was on board with that, so.
Yeah, I think Ken's really sharp. And if this is the best course of action, then makes sense.
I think one upside to utilizing what we have in place is that you have to provide people with some sort of process or due process when you're citing them. And in the general administrative fines ordinance, I guess the property owner, or whoever is violating, they get their due process in front of the city council. And so if we're issuing a huge volume of these, I don't know how many of these tickets you're typically issuing on a yearly basis, but city council is the court for that. So if somebody wants to contest that, they can ask for a hearing in front of the city council, and you guys are the sort of the judge and jury to find if it's appropriate. Under this ordinance, it sounds like you can offer people due process through the court system. So I think that's one upside, that if we're writing a lot of these tickets, there is a chance that, you're gonna see a lot of people requesting hearings in front of the city council. And do you really wanna be the judge and jury of every single one of these tickets if we're utilizing them an awful lot?
Right.
Court system has its downside, and you've touched on that sometimes in the churn, it doesn't feel like the proper message is being sent. But in the same respects, it's probably better suited for dealing with, offenses like this, parking offenses, basically.
That's a question I had, like, is that happening a lot, Charlie, where you have a lot of
I wouldn't
these tickets,
say-
or is it on an uptick, like you've seen it more and more, or?
Well, there's one particular business in town that we're, seeing it more and more. And there's other places in town where we're kind of in the second part is how long do we wait till we issue another citation? To me, I feel like if we had something like this, when we issue them that first citation, we can let them know, hey, if this isn't, cleaned up within 7 days, you'll be getting a second citation, and it'll be double this one. And then if it's not after that, you're gonna get another citation 7 days later, and it's gonna be double that one. I feel like that puts some more teeth into it and hopefully get them to clean up their property, as opposed to, well, we'll give you a $50 ticket today, we'll get busy, maybe, you don't clean it up, maybe we'll be back in a month, and now you get another one. But if they know it's coming every 7 days, or, whatever the council decides, if we get to that point, I feel like it's got more teeth, and we get people hopefully to be, more in compliance. Well, geez, I don't want a $300 ticket, every 7 days, so I'm gonna, clean it up, hopefully. But I wouldn't say there's a lot, but I think it's becoming more prevalent with a small portion of people.
And then would abatement ultimately follow?
I think so. I think that would be a logical conclusion, whatever the number is, right? Let's say it's, okay, this is the 6th offense now in less than a year. It's still not cleaned up, then I think after that we go to abatement, or, whatever the magic number is.
I think you touched on it already, but, so Ken would be the one that would then defend this if anybody would challenge it?
Yeah, because right now it's misdemeanor. So the misdemeanor, the most we can put on there is $1,000. If it's a petty misdemeanor, it shows there it's $300, but then we can't force them to go into court and appear in court. I know it's kind of confusing, but if it's a misdemeanor, we can, and right now it's a misdemeanor, so it's good, it's what we want.
They felt comfortable defending it? I mean, they were happy with it?
I ran it by Ken, talked to him, and he didn't seem to have any issues with it. He's the one that gave me the instruction and/or / advice, I guess, so.
I think that sounds good, if the lawyer is willing to defend it.
How does this get changed then, Steve, if you went to this?
We would
The
need to do
fee
it.
schedule, or?
Would this need an amendment to our code from a parking violation standpoint, and then we could?
So these fees appear in our fee schedule, right?
Yes.
So we would just have to pass a resolution changing the fees in our fee schedule. The ordinance itself that we're charging it under has it characterized as a misdemeanor. All of that is in place. We're just changing the amount of money that the citations are for.
What about the other second part of that is the duration between tickets, say it's continuing, he's using an example of 7 days. Would that need to be addressed in our code?
No, I mean, I think that can probably be boiled down to, putting that as a policy of the police department, that, because and I'd have to pull the exact case on this or talk to Ken about it, but my recollection is that, you know, you don't necessarily have to set the, you know, the jeopardy on a offense. So, you know, you don't have to say this is gonna be, you know, considered a separate offense if it's, you know, 7 days pass or whatever. I believe the minimum is 24 hours, but I'd wanna check with Ken on that, because he'd be the one prosecuting it. But right now, tentatively, I would say that we don't have to put it in the actual ordinance, but we should probably write it down somewhere as a department policy or something that comes from the city council. But I can circle back around with Chief Eichten and Steve on the best way to go about that.
I think you're right with your 24-hour timeline. We've done that in the past, where every day a person just kept getting a ticket.
I guess, excuse me, I guess, I'm fine with whatever the council decides. I mean, if you want us to go there every 24 hours and issue a citation, you know, that's fine. Every 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever, you know, the council decides, just so we're all in agreement, and then we can start, you know, doing it that way.
So is this gonna apply to whether it's like vehicles or just the yard's full of junk and needs to be
I think,
cleaned up?
I mean,
or
I
whatever?
hate
What-
to
I
use-
guess, what are we,
I hate to use the word common sense, but I guess if I'm the kind of the point of contact for the department as far as what the violation is, and maybe that's getting into some gray area, but, you know, like, there's things, and I don't necessarily have a great example, but like, you know, if somebody keeps, you know, parking in their front yard, right, and they keep doing it, then, you know, you keep escalating it, whereas maybe it's, you know, a parking offense where they get a snow ordinance ticket, right? I don't necessarily think if they get one, you know, 4 months later that we need to double it.
Right.
But if it's something that's a continued problem that's not getting taken care of, then I would say that that's when we start, you know, doubling it, but not for everything unless it's a habitual problem. I know I'm not explaining that great, but
Yeah, I
like,
guess-
for example, there's somebody in town that lets their dog run at large. We keep citing them. This would be great, like, okay, next time you do it, it's gonna be $100. Then after that, it's gonna be 150, but for, you know, a minor parking thing where maybe it happens once every 6 months, I don't think we necessarily need to, you know, do that. I think this is just, you know, put some teeth behind it to get the people to comply that aren't complying.
I'm thinking like more along the lines, like somebody starts, pretty soon they have 2 old snowmobiles and an old camper and old vehicles sitting in their yard that are just sitting there,
Right.
and we're forcing them to, or want them to get that cleaned up. Is this applying to that situation as well?
I would say yes.
So, and
That's
that-
my thoughts.
So I'm thinking on that case, I think the 7 days maybe is kinda, I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, if they have a lot of junk there, 7 days isn't a lot of time.
Well, initially, when we go out, when we deal with people, right, we don't, you know, let's say their house is dilapidated, we don't say you have 7 days to do it. But for something like that, we give them like 2 months, and then we work with people. So if they're like, well, you know, or, you know, something with 10 days, and like, well, I can't get to it, can I have an extra 3 days? Like, we always say yes, we always work with them, because the goal is to get them to clean it up.
But eventually, when they just don't do it, then it's gonna.
Right,
now it's-
so like
okay.
if it's something like a junk vehicle, and we go there on day one, usually we're, you know, we're not citing them for, you know, maybe up to 3 weeks or a month, so they've already had that month to do it.
Okay.
They haven't done it, give them a ticket, 7 days later, give them another ticket, you know, so it's not like just initially 7 days, it could be, you know, 3 or 4 weeks that they have initially to take care of the problem, depending on what it is.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, yep, so if that's so, then that's, I mean, I'm good with the 7 days then.
Yeah.
And then do people get like first, like knock on the door, hey, if you don't get this out of here, then
Yeah.
in
and
7 days, then I'm going to start
Correct,
fining you.
yes,
So
that
they
would
have a
be,
like
that would be,
notice.
I don't know if a policy is the right word, but that would be my direction as the chief to the officers. Hey, when you give them this ticket, let them know this is what's gonna happen in 7 days if it's not cleaned up. So that everyone knows, and probably even in writing.
Do you see this problem a lot with, you know, so I said, obviously, regard to some parking and stuff, you have, I mean, there's a few places in town, you know, I'm gonna use Michael Foods as an example.
Sure.
You know, you have a lot of out-of-town truck drivers. Is it, I mean, obviously, is that a problem you guys deal with, where you have, you know, different people all the time, or it's,
That is addressed in the second thing I'm gonna be talking
Okay.
about tonight. So to answer your question, yes, but as, the way I see it as of right now, it's only at one particular property in town.
yeah, and I use Michael Foods just as, you know, everybody knows it,
Sure.
but, you know, because always you're gonna give a $50 fine to every individual trucking company around the countryside,
Right.
but the point really doesn't get across as far as it being a problem in Gaylord.
Right.
So,
So as far as the trucking problem goes, where they're parking, where they're not supposed to be parking, is exactly what you just said, which is at one location in town right now that's constantly on the radar, which is what I'm gonna be talking about in the second thing.
Okay.
Essentially putting up, no parking signs, so people from out of state, out of town know that they're not supposed to be parking there, as right now, they probably have no idea they can't park there.
but basically they just get a $50 fine then, being that
Yeah.
it likely to be their first offense.
Correct. Or if it's, even their first time there, maybe just a verbal warning. Then it's documented. If we catch them doing it again, then it's that, $50 ticket, so.
So tonight, you're just looking for consensus that we are in agreement and we'll work on this down the road, or at future meetings, right?
Are you looking to get it passed?
If we're all in agreement that this is a good thing and the fine amounts look right and that it should be every 7 days after the initial offense, then I say, let's pass it.
We would need to bring back a resolution.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked that, you guys document everything when you're going there and what's changed, just because people get really upset about their personal property and you tell them to clean it up. It causes a big rift and heartache to people, so just make sure your documentation is good.
Sure.
I think what we're looking for mostly is your consensus on this structure. If you want something else.
I like
that's
it.
good.
I think it
I'm
looks
good
good.
with it. I say, if we move forward on a resolution or something, keep it moving.
And just use your discretion, like you said, about Scott's question.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use the term common sense, but we're not going out looking to be jerks, it's just people that aren't getting the picture.
Right.
Okay, well, I think you have consensus, so we will bring it back in the form of a resolution.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's move on to parking on Railroad Avenue.
So this kind of goes, the second one is, parking on Railroad Avenue, 3rd Street East, Southeast is pretty much exactly what Leighton was just saying there. The one particular business there, Primo's, we all know where that's located at, has numerous semis and trailers coming and going throughout most days, many from out of town, out of state, out of the area. They park on the roadway, which is currently against our city ordinance. A lot of people from out of town don't know that they can't park a semi there on the road, and like Leighton was saying, it's, different people every day. We've talked to the business numerous times. How do I want to say this? It's very hard for them to let everyone know because they have so many different people coming from all over the state and Canada, so all over the United States and Canada. So I guess what I'm looking for is, that we can erect some sort of no parking signs or no truck parking signs, on Railroad Avenue and 3rd Street Southeast, so that when these people are coming, they know they can't just dump their trailer there and then leave, or park their semi there for, a day or 2 or 3. It'd also be easier for the police department, when I say easier, for our peace of mind, if we're issuing citations to everyone that, they know they're not supposed to be parking there, which is why I'm looking to, I guess essentially have the council make it no parking, and then we erect signs saying that there's no parking. Hopefully that'll cut down on a lot of the violations and a lot of the complaints we're getting now about, semis and trailer being parked on Railroad Avenue and 3rd Street Southeast pretty much on a daily basis.
Yeah, I've heard times from some of the businesses that are on Shoreview that they have a hard time getting down that street because of traffic on it. Your X is on the map, that's where you want the signs? Is that on both sides?
Well, that's
of the
just kind
street?
of a idea. If we put them right in front of Primo, then they're just gonna park down more towards, Shoreview, so, or 2nd Street East, down farther. So I'm thinking pretty much, all of Railroad Avenue from 2nd Street East all the way to 3rd Street East, that whole block, and then going south from Railroad down to Shoreview. Because if we put up signs there, they're just gonna park farther down where there aren't signs.
If we don't have signs on Shoreview, are people gonna park there?
Well, that'd be an awfully long way for them to walk to get up to Primo's business. And yeah, maybe you're right, maybe we put it around that whole block. But I just think right now, it's so difficult, because I mean, I don't want to complain, but we stay pretty busy and we don't have time to babysit, you know, primos 24/7. So if we can get some help as far as putting up, you know, no parking signs, that would help us in hopefully A, cutting down on people parking there, and then B, making it easier for us to give tickets to people from out of state because, hey, there's the sign, you know?
Yeah, you
And
would
then,
hope
and then the
that-
business doesn't have to be running out there. I mean, they're not, but they don't have to be running out there every, you know, hour telling everybody, hey, you can't park there, because they are obviously busy and have, you know, work to do too. So I think it only makes sense that if we're having problems and we have an ordinance that says you can't park semis on the streets, that, you know, where the biggest problem is that we erect some signs.
So, are you looking at putting them on both sides of them streets?
Yes. And I don't know, you know, what a good number is. Maybe if we say every, you know, I guess go walk it out, you know, every 100 feet or 200 feet or, you know, whatever it is, and then figure out how many we need to order. Just as long as it's obvious that you can't be parking there. And that, not that people, you know, not that we put up 2 on each side of the road on all of 3rd Street East and, you know, nobody can see them. So I don't know what a good number is, if it's every 200 feet or 300 feet or, you know, what the good footage is.
I mean, I guess you could put some up, space them out a little bit, and if it doesn't, if they're missing or it isn't helping, then maybe you have to get more. And, you know, start with this lower number, or try to get a good number there, and if it's still not working, or they're not seeing them or whatever, and we have to put more in, and that's.
Okay, so we need a motion to schedule a public hearing for 7 PM on June 4th, 2025, for the purpose of considering an ordinance to prohibit parking on Railroad Avenue East to 3rd Street East and prohibit parking on 3rd Street southeast, south of Railroad Avenue to Shoreview Lane.
Well, I mean, right now, nobody else parks there besides semis. I shouldn't say nobody. The overwhelming majority of the problem is the semis parking there. And then the few cars that do park there are people that, you know, are getting picked up or dropped off or are working there. So the only real problem would be the semis. So, you know, me personally, if we have an option, if we have a choice, I don't think it has to be no parking for, you know, a regular car or a truck. It's just, I'm talking about like the big semis and the big trailers and
What,
whatnot.
like a no semi-parking sign?
But if you do that, are the employees gonna start parking on the street then there every day, all day, to make room in the lot for?
Sure. Well, at least you could see around them easier for other businesses, you know, no different than any other street. But, I mean, personally, me, whatever, you know, the council decides, if you want no parking period, or, you know, if you want it, just no semi-parking.
Well, I'm just trying to think, is there really isn't much of a need for anybody to be parking on that street. I mean, the businesses there have plenty of lot and rooms, so it's like, what would be the need for anybody to even park on that street?
Yeah, I agree.
It's just simpler then.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. It does make it a lot simpler. And nobody's really parking there right now anyways for motor vehicles, other than, you know, the big ones.
I would just say no parking.
No parking.
You want a motion on the resolution?
Well, motion to schedule the public hearing.
Oh, it's a schedule. I'll make that motion, schedule a public hearing for parking on Railroad and 3rd Street East.
So we have a motion by Padilla. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Rose. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We'll schedule this then for the June 4th meeting.
Yes. Okay, next is city engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just by way of introduction, Justin Black, City Engineer. At the April 16th meeting, we shared some pictures of a washout that has occurred south of the dam. A channel has formed and water is running around the outside of the dam area. We talked a little bit about some of the next steps, and we talked about Steve and I meeting with a Minnesota DNR representative out on site. And really what came out of that meeting with the DNR were 3 things. First of all, the city needs to make a repair soon. Second of all, they need to submit a permit for that repair. And third, a plan needs to be attached to that permit for making the repair. So in front of the council tonight is an agreement for us to assist the city in preparing this permit package, including a plan that outline the permit and submitting that to the DNR for their approval so that this repair can be made. So that's there for your consideration. The plan that we prepare, the city can use that. We can assist them to share that with a contractor so that they can put together a quote that we can bring back for actually doing the repair work for that washout area. There's maybe one more thing I'd like to add. Steve and I have since also met with the Game Protective League representatives, a separate meeting, out on site, and we took a look at this area and talked a little bit about the history of the shoreline south of the dam with the GPL folks that have been around a long time. And it's become evident that over the decades, there's been other washouts in this area. And you could see visually that, and they confirmed that just by visiting with us. We did talk a little bit about maybe a more comprehensive project, be a larger project to maybe try to prevent this entire area from having these periodic washouts. But we agreed that it would be better to save that for when the dam is replaced and do a more comprehensive project. It'd be more costly. Maybe there would be some additional funding we could secure by that time. But the thought was just to focus on this particular washout, repair that, stop the water from flowing. But then the idea would be to come back at some point in the future and maybe look at something more comprehensive. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the next steps moving forward.
I may just add or piggyback on that. When we were out there talking with the reps from the GPL, we did talk about this repair, and at least they appeared receptive to at least sharing in that cost, but they also said that they'd have to take it back to their membership for a vote.
Was there a timeline from the the DNR as to how quickly we had to do this?
In the email, they
Other
said as
than-
soon as possible, and then we did ask if it could wait until 2027, until the dam project is completed, and they said no, it'd have to be made before that. So at this point in time, I guess we'd like to get it completed this construction season yet, and we know there'll be a timeline for them to review the permit and turn things back around and for the city to get a contractor on board. But they didn't provide an exact date, no.
Was there any kind of like fine if we, didn't get it done before then that they talked about?
They didn't mention a fine, no.
I'm just trying to understand why it's the city's issue. I mean, if there's a breach anywhere around the lake, is the city gonna be responsible for it? I mean, I don't get why we're on the hook for this. It doesn't.
So I
make
did a little digging on that question, and I guess I don't even have a whole lot of context of when this land transfer happened to the Protection League, but I looked up on the DNR on their website, or the state of Minnesota's got a nice interactive tool. And in their records, they have the city as the owner of the dam. And there is a little bit of a process for transferring a permit. So you sell land that is, has a dam situated on it. You have to go through a separate process of transferring the dam permit, I think would be how you characterize it. And so I guess I can only assume that when the land was transferred, that this was part of the deal to keep it in the city's name. If that wasn't the case, then, I guess DNR considers this to be the property of the city. And so that is why they're directing everything at us, and they're probably not gonna wanna deal with anybody but the city, because their records show that we hold the permit and we own it.
Right, for the dam we do, but not where the breach is, right? Isn't that over further, that's GPL property where the breach is?
It is, yeah.
So that's why I'm wondering if it's GPL's property where the breach is, why is the city responsible for that when it's on somebody else's property?
Well, I guess that's a good question. In terms of who's responsible, my suspicion is that the DNR doesn't split hairs that closely. They say, this is your dam, there is something that has bypassed it, and you need to fix it. And there may be opportunities for the city to reach out to them. I guess we've already started these conversations about them sharing the cost. But in terms of if we don't fix this and the DNR eventually gets to an enforcement action, that's all gonna be directed at the city because we own the dam. And so in terms of who needs to fix this, we're probably the ones that need to be out in front. And, I mean, has there been any discussion with the DNR about responsibility, or has it just been presumed from the beginning that this is the city's responsibility?
All the correspondence has been with the city through Steve, so,
I actually posed the question. I haven't got a response back yet as far as if, ultimately, I think the responsibility does lie on the landowner. They're the ones that abut it. But what if the landowner doesn't respond? What then? What happens then? And that's the question I posed to the DNR.
maybe just a follow-up, I sat through quite a bit of discussion about imposing fines on violations, and there was some talk about the common sense approach to notifying people before they read a citation. I would view that as probably the stage where we're at. We haven't gotten an exact timeline. We haven't gotten any type of fines imposed. But I would assume if we don't follow up, that might be coming. I don't know for sure, but I would categorize it kind of as a similar type process.
Steve, is there any kind of like FEMA money? I mean, as far, being that it's a washout, possibly from flooding over the past few years? I mean, is there any way to go down that route?
Generally, there has to be some sort of disaster declared, a declaration by the governor for a county, and then that's usually how that all gets started.
Was Sibley County included in that, last year?
Yes.
Yes, they were, but we didn't declare anything as far as any damages that we had at that time, because we didn't experience anything to our knowledge.
I mean, is there any way to go back and, who's to know this didn't come from? I mean, I'm just asking, is there a way to go down that alley if we can get FEMA money for it?
Typically, those FEMA declaration disasters do have ending dates, which you have to submit your claim by a certain timeline. I guess I don't know what it would be for last year, but typically it's within that season, if you will, of when that disaster happened.
What's their concern with getting this repaired so quick, or that it couldn't wait till the dam's done and take care of that line all at once?
It's, Steve, do you want to speak to that, or I can? It is getting worse since the last 3 weeks, since the time we've been out there. It is scouring wider and deeper. I guess their concern is just the way that it's draining the lake out around the dam structure, and then just the extent of the amount of scour and erosion that's happening out there. We haven't had any real heavy rain events. This spring, we've had a few rain showers, but I think the concern is if we would get a big rainfall, that washout area could expand quite a bit potentially.
And from the information I read, it will affect the, vegetation, aquatic species, all those things in the lake.
But it's talked about doing a drawdown on the lake anyway. I mean, they want to clean it up, so
Right.
if it draws down now on its own like that, what's the down, I guess that's where I'm struggling with it, is what's the urgency on it? And if the DNR is so concerned about that, why are they not helping out with this? They want to get in there and give permits and tell us what we can and can't do, but they don't want to help fund it.
They're all fair questions.
I mean, that's where I'm at on. I just don't see why the city's supposed to be on the hook for this right now, and when it's not on our land.
Well, and I agree with that, and I don't think that everything needs to be done, right this minute. I think we have time to kind of figure out whose responsibility it is, and if we're gonna assist the GPL with cost or anything like that, what's gonna be that share, as opposed to saying, like, right now, tonight, let's move forward and do this, and then never being able to recoup anything from it.
Right.
Yeah, and I understand we might have to be a vehicle to help the GPL, but, if it's their land, they should have a lot of responsibility in it, because we're setting a precedent then for any other.
Well, right, anybody else that lives on the lake, they have damage at their shoreline, is the city gonna step in and take care of it?
I guess I agree with Don, we'll probably end up being the vehicle for it, but, I mean, as we've all kind
Well,
of said, I
at
think
some
if we.
point, but then, like I say, if it's when the dam is done, when there's work being done in there and doing it all at once instead of trying to get equipment in there now, can't imagine that's gonna be all that cheap with all the trees to try to get equipment in there to bring in rock or fill or whatever needs to go in there to plug that up good. I just think it's gonna get costly when we're gonna be in there in a few years anyway, doing all that.
Can we table this for next meeting?
We can bring it back for more
Yeah, I would like
information.
you to get a response from the DNR about your question.
Sure, there's a lot of questions that have been brought up here, we can bring this back. Like Justin mentioned, the DNR hasn't given us any time frame when we have to have this done, they're just giving us a recommendation, or they want us to do it before we do the dam project. And I
Maybe
guess I
they-
could understand that, because we install a brand-new dam, and then we have a channel that's going around the dam, so the dam's not functioning the way it was intended to be in the first place, so that doesn't make a lot of sense, I guess. So this does have to be addressed somewhere, somehow, and who's the responsible party will need to be defined more clearly, I guess.
Maybe they need to come to a meeting and explain it, the DNR. Maybe they have to send someone out and walk us through the whole thing, why it's on us or what.
Yeah, and if the DNR would have a meeting, I would want the GPL to be invited to that as well. I think that would be helpful.
Steve, you were talking about land besides that washout area that may need to be addressed. If we're gonna go in there and do it before that dam, wouldn't it make sense to address those areas too? Is there more additional area?
Yeah, Justin brought this up at the last meeting too, that, this is just one little small pocket. That whole shoreline over there, it's very, very low. And obviously this has been, water has gone over that. You can see where it's created all these channels, or not a lot, but there's some channels that have been created through the woods there. These things weren't just created last year. They've been there for many, many years. So there used to be an old dike there. There's remnants, concrete remnants of the old dike there. There's hardly anything left of it. All you can just see some little concrete on the ground here and there. So at one time, there was something that was there that was trying to hold back the water, and then, so it would go over to the dam. And maybe something like that would have to be, something along that lines, again, would have to be established. But I agree that we do need to address this probably with the dam project. Otherwise, we're gonna be having this problem reoccur, and we're gonna be putting this new dam in, and then it's not gonna be functioning the way we intended it to.
Absolutely.
Consensus to table it?
Get more
Okay.
information.
I'll see if we can get a representative from the DNR to attend. I think that's a very good suggestion.
Share their opinion a little bit, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Then we can decide which direction to move forward and get going. Okay. Next, under unfinished business, we don't have anything tonight. Under new business, we have the 115 4th Street building demolition. Under 11A.
Okay. I have quite a bit to just mention about this, but you're all familiar with this property. We've talked about it at a few different meetings. This property is actually, the rear wall collapsed or partially collapsed back in the winter of 2023. The council did agree to hire SEH to do a building assessment report on it back in August of '23, which they came back with basically their recommendation ultimately was just to remove the building. We also had our building inspector looked at it as well, and similar conclusion. From there, the council agreed that we should approach the landowner about removing the building, basically giving the consent to the city to do so, and Mark drafted a document referred to as a consent to abatement of a hazardous property, which the property owners did sign. So we do have the right now to enter the property if desired to remove that existing building. The one challenge with this is the property to the south, they have some soil contamination due to years of dumping petroleum products on the ground, which have seeped into this property as well. Going down in the basement, you can actually see it in the concrete walls where that has seeped in. This would be in the back section where the wall collapsed. Some of you know the history of this building. This was one building that was added onto. I think it was maybe in the 1980s or so. But basically, it's the back section that's the problem. The whole building itself structurally has a lot of issues. We actually had a couple different parties that were interested in possibly rehabbing the building for uses, and they were strong. They looked at it really closely, but both of them in the end did walk away and decided not to do anything with it. I have been in contact with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, who has submitted an order to the property to the south that they are responsible. They're the responsible party. That's the terminology that they utilize for cleaning this up, because that's where the issues started from. So the soil corrections that need to be done are on the property to the south. Now, from a demolition standpoint, if the city wants to go in there and demo that building, we do have to be careful. If we elect to demo the entire building, including the foundation, based on the Minnesota PCA rules, we will be on the hook for cleaning up everything. That means the soil contamination as it pertains to that property, which we don't really want to have to be responsible for. To get around that, what the PCA is saying is that if we elect not to remove the foundation, we just remove the building, leave the foundation there, and just fill it back in, we would not be responsible for anything. The property owner to the south will be, since they're not only responsible for cleaning up their own property, they're responsible for cleaning up this property since it's seeped over to it. They're, based on the order that the PCA, this was earlier this year, submitted to their property owner to the south, they would have 30 days from the end of the demolition to submit a mediation plan for how they were going to clean it up. So at this point in time, my understanding is they have an environmental consultant that they've hired that would be basically responsible for that. We would be coordinating too with that environmental consultant during the demolition too. At this point in time, I have one of the things that we're required to do is whenever you're removing a commercial building or a multifamily rental building, the PCA does require you to file a report with them. It's actually a form that you have to file with them prior to demolition. Part of that too is that you have to file along with it an asbestos report, show that you've had an inspection completed. So that would have to go along with that form. I've solicited one quote for doing an inspection, asbestos report, and got a quote back for $850 to do that. So once that is completed, then we could move ahead with going out for quotes, and then awarding, and then moving on to the demolition. As far as options for you this evening, I guess where I'm leading this towards, because this is not an easy thing for a city, because there's not a lot of options out there. Currently, the landowners basically walked away from the property. They haven't paid taxes for the past 2 years on the property. There is a mortgage on the property, but the bank, I've spoken with them, and they are not looking to invest any more monies into this property. They are very happy to let it go into tax forfeiture, and then ultimately the county would be responsible for the property. Generally, I believe the law is 3 years without paying taxes will trigger tax forfeiture. So this will be year number 3 on that. Just to add a couple other things, as stated already, the building is failing, it's deteriorating, it's not going to get any better, it's not going to get any cheaper to remove it. In this particular case, we would have an opportunity here to remove a hazardous building, and then also some cleanup of contaminated soils would also happen with this, which would be nice to be able to get that done. The PCA has been working with that property owner for a few years now and trying to accomplish that. At this point, I guess I'd open up to any questions. The only thing I didn't mention as far as how would we pay for this, we have our, I guess what I would look at as our 801 fund. Based on our audit from 2024, at the end of last year, we had $1.3 million in that fund, so we do have some monies there. As far as assistance for this, kind of similar to like the county when they were looking at removing the old school and kind of the research that they did, they did apply for a loan through the state for demolition. They're hoping to get about $100,000. The one, unfortunately, we don't qualify for that program. One of the criteria is you have to own the property. So that's not an option for us. Otherwise, I don't know of any other programs out there that assist with something like this at this time. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Who owns the property?
The same party that we got the permission to go onto the property to remove the building,
So this person that hasn't paid their taxes and paying their mortgage, they still own it?
they still own it. Yes.
And when will they not own it?
Well, if the county goes into tax forfeiture, that's when that would happen, yes.
But if we tear it down, you said that was like 3 years? And if we tear it down now, how is it ever, it'll still go into tax forfeiture against?
If they elect not to pay.
Go ahead.
We would be able to assess that cost for one thing. But basically, this will be year 3 that they haven't paid any tax. If they don't pay any taxes, then next year it would go into tax forfeiture.
And the cost of tearing that down for us, we could assess that.
Yes, we can
To the-
assess it, but keep in
correct.
mind, you know, when a tax forfeiture process begins, all the assessments that are on the property go away. The city, we've had this come up with other properties that went into this process. We've brought it in front of you. Do you want to, then you can make the determination of whether or not you want to reassess that property or not. Usually any potential buyers of the property are going to want to know that. So that's when we bring it back to you, and you guys make that determination.
I think it's gonna be really hard to reassess that when somebody wants to bring a business back to that area, and then all of a sudden you're gonna say, hey, by the way, you're gonna have to pay this assessment.
Are there any parties that looked at the building interested in the empty lot if it gets cleaned up and do anything with it, or does that never?
One kind of alluded to it. It is a small lot.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the buildings are right on top of each other right there. It's very tight. There's really no room behind the building either.
It's
So,
car
so
wash.
basically, we spend all this money and we're gonna have a parking lot there, is what it'll alone too.
We could use a downtown parking lot.
What does that look like, Steve? You're saying they cut it down to the foundation, and then they put something over it? What is that?
We just put fill over it, just dirt.
So is it like street level then? or
Yeah,
is it-
well, it would be down to the ground level.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's on the ground.
So at that point,
be-
nobody could do anything there, because you have a foundation, so nobody could build a new if they wanted
Right.
to.
That's where the property to the south, the PCA is gonna require them to come in there and do the cleanup. Now, I don't know what that would all entail, if they're gonna require them to remove all the foundation out of there, but I would anticipate at least that back portion where you could see it in the walls where it's seeped in, that's all gonna have to go. And that probably, and then the back wall probably would have to go too. And then they would ultimately, the PCA would have to sign off on, yep, okay, everything is done, everything is clean, everything is good.
How much longer is that gonna go on? Say the building's gone, now they can get in there and do their corrections. How much longer are they gonna be given to clean that area up?
That I don't know.
Could it be years, or?
I suspect this is just my speculation, you know, they have 30 days from the end of the demolition to submit a mediation plan. I would suspect, once the PCA accepts that plan, that they would put a date of completion in on it. In fact, probably within the plan, they would lay out a schedule for when that's gonna happen.
So if we just take it down to the foundation, and then we have to backfill it just for them to go in there and dig it all out again to get it.
I know where some dirt is.
Well, it's like it should be coordinated. I mean, with the PCA, that they have to remedy the situation when the building's demolished, so it can
Yeah.
just get it done at once and fill it in and be done.
I
It's
thought
just-
of that too, and I asked, you know, couldn't they submit that mediation plan before, you know, the end of the demolition, and they said, no, it has to be after.
That money you're talking about, is that capital improvement money? Now, is that the same money that we have set aside for a new fire truck for,
Exactly, yes.
wouldn't that cut away from our financial plan then?
Well, fortunately, we've built it up pretty well right now, and we continue to add to it as, you know, to keep it healthy. It's just one of those things we just always got to watch and plan, and, you know, that's why we have our schedules, our replacement schedules, trying to keep up with all that, and if we need to, make adjustments as we have to. But I do try to, I like to keep this fund healthy because we rely on it so much for these, you know, equipment replacements and
Yeah.
so forth.
I agree.
Fortunately, the police, they have a pretty strong fund yet too. So that's actually separate, you know, if we're looking at replacing a patrol car, we have that capital fund as well. And the fire department does have additional monies too, so they can, like they did with the last truck, they were able to help out with that too. So, but there's always major things coming
Yeah.
down the pike.
Yeah, you know, for years, we've heard so many complaints about that building, you know, and at least the windows finally repaired in the front, but, I mean, everybody complains about it, it needs to go, it's just that funny thing that, you know, it's always the city that has to pay, and it sucks.
It is kind of unfortunate that these things fall back to cities as, you know, a responsible party because there's nobody else left. And there's nowhere else to go with it. And, you know, like to see a building get removed from your downtown. Oftentimes it creates a little bit of a void there. But at the same time, we have a hazard out there right now. I mean, it hasn't, I will say this, it hasn't really seemed like it's deteriorated more than when it collapsed. It seems to have stayed pretty stable.
Well, and we pretty much are gonna have to spend that $850 for that assessment of asbestos
asbestos.
inside there, right?
Yeah,
And that's-
we have to have that done. That's a part of the state requirements.
I mean, it kind of makes sense to get that done, and then I'd like to see the bids and where they're gonna be at for this thing.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not asking you to, you know, make that big decision tonight.
Just for the
Basically, looking for direction, if you're willing to move ahead and bring everything up to that and go out for quotes, and then bring those back to you.
I'm guessing that's not gonna be real cheap. With the business right to the south, it's like they're gonna have to be fairly careful in that tight quarters to tear
Yeah.
that down without damaging
And
anything.
then you got power lines on the north side.
Yeah.
But if the foundation's there, you don't have to dig.
But now I think we mentioned this before, so when if they start demoing it and any of the debris falls in the basement, then what? Isn't that considered contaminated then, or they can't? I thought you said if it touches or even comes near it, then that's considered,
I guess I don't have a direct answer for that tonight. I'll find more about that though.
because I don't know how they tear it down without anything falling in there.
Right.
That helps fill it up.
Yeah, there you go.
Cheaper.
Well, we've been talking about this a
Yeah.
long time, so, not just tonight, but through the past year or so. Do we have consensus to move forward to at least get more information about demolition?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Next, under new business, 11B, library part-time position.
As you know, we had somebody that recently resigned from the library that was in a part-time librarian position, assistant library position. Sometimes it's an opportunity to reevaluate and reassess these positions. And I guess I'm just bringing this up to see what your thoughts are, not necessarily with a proposal here, but just to take a look at this particular time. Looking at the libraries around the county, there are 3 of the 5 do have a full-time library director. In my opinion, this isn't the first place I've worked that has a library, this is actually the 3rd. And from my own experience, it is somewhat of a unique position, depending on the library, of course, but type of candidates that you might get to apply for a position. I think we were fortunate to get somebody willing to work at a part-time basis at a library and be the director. So I guess I'm looking at this just to bring it to give it some consideration. I do have to make one major correction on my memo to you. I think I was rushing too much when I was putting this together, but I mentioned in here the benefits would cost somewhere between 30 and 35,000. That's extremely off. It would be more in the neighborhood of 13 to 14,000 total. That would be 13 to 14,000 with wages and benefits,
Extra.
in addition to what we currently have budgeted. That's my estimation, so pardon me on that.
That sounds better.
Does that factor in not hiring the part-time person then?
Correct. So that's the difference.
So not having a part-time person and putting the librarian full-time would cost about 13 to 15,000 extra a year.
Right. Based on current salary wages.
But in addition to that, now you're not gonna have that part-time employee, and then you also have vacation time that's gonna be put in there as well, right? And what about, we get that wage study done, so that person will now be a full-time department head. So won't that, come into consideration for the pay scale?
Yes.
So I would imagine that they're gonna go up in their wages as well then.
Potentially, but potentially they could also stay the same. I mean, personally, I think, in reference to our entire pay scale, I believe they're in a good position there. We actually, when we hired, when we took back the library, I think we were actually paying them a little bit more than what the county was across the board.
And she would prefer full-time hours librarian, right? Or
She would definitely prefer it.
How many part-time are we at right now?
We have two currently on staff. We've had three in the past. Well, I take that back. We have three right now because the director's part-time, but we've had four total staff in the library, all part-time.
So then with this, we'd go to one full-time and two part-time.
Correct. So that would give the library director 10 extra hours per week. As you know already, it's a supervisory position, so, what else can I add? I think you brought up the main points as far as, I guess, that I had thought about as far as disadvantages. One would be the cost, and then secondly, you've got to reduce staff. You don't have as many staff people. So if somebody is out, whether it's vacation or an extended leave, that puts more burden on the other staff
Yeah,
members.
I was just gonna ask about that, then the workload, is a little different too. So 10 hours is short of what the other part-time person, I'm sure, had. Like, do you remember the hours for a part-time?
They were, most of our part-timers are working at least 14 hours a week.
I mean, to
Depending on
divide
the
that up
schedule.
then, you know what I'm saying, to divide that up.
so you put
To the
that
other
10 on the full-time and then 2 more hours on
Yeah,
the
that-
part-time,
I have to go somewhere,
roughly.
and how
And are
that
you,
affects them and how they feel about that, like additional hours potentially, or maybe they don't need all the hours, I guess I don't know that.
Have you talked with the other part-time employees or just,
Michelle has.
what are their
And
thoughts?
and I guess they're fine with, it would have to be some changes to the schedule.
I've heard great things about her, so
Oh,
she seems like she's doing.
she's doing a great job.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is-
She's really trying to get
Yeah.
things going and new things
Yeah,
and try things.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
doing a great job.
And it isn't easy to fill part-time positions always, so I think when you look at the position long-term, I mean, it's a lot to consider with the costs and the advantages and disadvantages, but 40 hours would make it a more attractive job
To keep
to
her.
keep it, to keep a library director. And yeah, and Michelle's doing great. I'm amazed every month, all the offerings they have. It's been really fun to see.
Yeah, her 6 months, so first 6 months will be up next month. So she's still on probation. But I guess I would echo that. I've had some really good experiences with her so far. I think she's doing great. One thought here too, I mean, if this is something you would like to take longer to consider, this is an item that could be brought up during our budget workshops later this summer. But at the meantime, we're still running with the staff that we still have, so that's it's a trade-off.
And that's coming up pretty relatively soon.
Yes, it'll be July, likely.
Would this put her as a salary then,
No.
being a department head, or no?
I'd have to go through there's like questions that you have to ask and make that determination. I don't think it would.
So are they between her and the other two part-timers, are they making up that 14 hours a week amongst the three of them now, or?
Currently, yes. Yeah, we have not shortened our hours at the library. In fact, that's one of the requirements with our county agreement, that we maintain the same level of hours that we had when it was under them. And this proposal would not either change anything.
I think that it'd benefit us to wait for the budget workshop. I still really believe that once she becomes a department head, a full-time employee for that library, that the wage study is gonna increase her wage more than it is right now. It seems like everybody else's wage has gone up. I don't know how that would stay the same. Plus, again, every time you hire a full-time employee, then they have more sick time, they have more vacation time, and then if you're trying to run it by taking away a part-timer, that time still needs to be made up, and I just eventually see another part-time coming on board to cover up those hours. So I know she's doing a great job, and I'm not trying to take anything away from what she's doing. I just look at this from the financial standpoint, and that's just kind of where I'm at on this issue.
Well, I think we'd have to stand firm if we did decide to put her full-time, is that no more, we're gonna have two part-times and part-time helpers, and that they're gonna have to make that work. It's like you say, I don't wanna put her on full-time, and then 6 months down the road, and then they're asking for another part-time helper.
That always happens.
I know.
So, were you saying like they can't adjust their hours to say like, is that what I heard? Like the hours that they currently work, you can't adjust or cut hours. So let's say a Saturday afternoon isn't busy, so instead of being open till whatever, we're gonna close at noon. Can they do that, or they can't do that?
Well, the agreement we have with the county is that we're supposed to keep the same library hours, same number of hours that we always had available to the public. It's not to say that we don't never, ever, ever close the library early. We do.
I was just curious if that, trying to even out those hours, if there's something else they could do, like, would it make sense if they're not busy consistently, never really have anybody coming in during this time? Could we say we'd like to close a little earlier permanently on these days,
Is that county agreement like a certain term, or is that?
That agreement,
Correct.
it expires at the end of this year.
So then that could be a negotiating thing if we're gonna change hours possibly.
Yeah. I don't know.
The county will always disperse that money to us, though, for the library.
Well, I suspect we're gonna get some sort of an agreement where, again, they might be looking to scale back our funding.
But then we should be able to scale back hours too.
Yeah,
I mean, if
see,
they're gonna
that's
change
just
that part of the agreement, then we shouldn't have to follow the original.
Yeah.
How many hours a week are they open? I mean, do you know off the top of your heads,
It's 43.
total?
And are they busy, all 43 for them? I mean, is there times that they are slow that it could be closed and?
That's what I'm saying. I think Saturday afternoons, they're
Aren't they only
open.
Up until 1?
Oh, I think might be longer than that.
Especially over the summer.
That's what
It gets
that's
real,
what I
it's
was
gotta
thinking.
get
It's
real.
like in the summer, man, I don't know, if you can't get there in the morning, then, But maybe that doesn't help anything at all. I don't know that answer either. So that would be something to talk to Michelle about, kind of what their flow is.
Do we have any other discussion, or does everyone agree to kind of table this until budget talks? What's the council feeling?
Yeah, I think there's questions there yet, or,
Saturday, they're open till 1.
Oh, okay.
Monday and Tuesday, they're open noon to 7. Wednesday, 9 to 6. Thursday, noon to 7. Friday, 9 to 6. And Saturday, 9 to 1.
If you go in there after school, though, that's when it's busy. There's a lot of kids.
but even on a Friday up till 6 o'clock, it doesn't seem like that would be a real busy time on a Friday.
I don't know, I haven't been, but if you go after school, it's busy.
Yeah, I
A lot of-
believe that.
Which
I
is
just
great
seen-
that we have a safe place for our kids to go after school and hang out, so.
It just seems like on a Friday would not be the time that people, or kids are running in there after school, being the weekend start kind of, but. I'd be curious, I guess, if you could find out from them what their busy times are and what their slow times are.
As far as waiting till budget, I guess, are we still gonna plan on filling the part-time position then, or just wait on everything? You know, because ultimately, there's a part-time position open.
Yeah, I guess that's what I said was the trade-off. If we wait till the budget, then we're with this existing staff right now. I mean, we could try it out and see how it's working.
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
maybe we
say,
could do
if
that.
we go this route, they'd have to cover it, so maybe this is an opportunity to see if they like it with the 3 people there and how it goes for them.
And she has up to 30 hours now, is what she can do?
Yes.
I mean, do we just allow her to go, just do more hours for the next little bit, and then see how it goes, and then we can make it official eventually?
Yeah, because it's still part-time up to 40. So that's certainly an option.
Just to see how it
So, yeah,
goes?
between the 3 of them make up them hours, or they're losing from that third, the one that just resigned.
See if they can do it.
Mhm.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a
I
good way to
mean,
try
right
it.
now, I imagine it's the assistants that are making up the hours versus Michelle, where she's locked into the 30.
And I guess I wouldn't have a problem with her picking up some of them extra hours, if she's willing to do it, to take it off the current part-time ones, if they don't wanna be doing it all the time.
Yeah, and maybe like what that schedule would look like if she does go full-time.
Mhm.
You know, how does that affect everybody? Do they, maybe they've got that all planned out already?
She does have a,
Okay. And
at least
everybody's,
one,
and her other employees are okay with it? would be
according
the
to
other
her.
thing.
I haven't had one-on-one conversations with them, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like consensus then. Let's keep moving.
Okay.
Okay, next is 11C Pond Meadows Addition Lot Sale.
The buyers of that lot that the city owns, Corey Klockman and Kyla Fronta, they are still very, very interested in the property. They just would like to back up the closing 30 days. And then they would also are requesting a couple other changes here. They would like a little bit more time to present, well, with the backing up of the closing to June 30th is what it was May 30th in the original purchase agreement, so backing it up 30 days to June 30th. Then we also have, they're supposed to submit their building plans, which they've now done by April 30th. I just received them earlier this week. So we would be basically moving that back to May 30th. And then lastly, they would like to have a little bit more time from the date of closing to complete the construction project. The current purchase agreement says 12 months from the date of closing. They'd like 18 months.
You said you got building plans now?
Yes, I do have them in hand. And I also have assigned this amendment that Mark prepared for this. They have signed it. Actually, Dawn's has it over there. The only change in this, we actually spelt her name wrong. In the agreement, at the first paragraph, it says Kayla, it's Kyla, Kyla. back in the signature block on the last page too, same thing. So in that one you got there, it's been changed.
I don't have one here,
Oh. Okay,
so
okay, we'll get it to you after,
Okay,
or if
sounds
it
good.
gets approved.
I have an email, Charlie's thing, that's it. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the First Amendment to Purchase Agreement between the City of Gaylord and Corey Clockman and Kyla Franta.
So we're not changing the 12 months to 18 months, or that?
Well, that's included in the amendments. Those are
Oh.
the three things I just went over, those were all in
Yeah,
there.
well, it
Those are-
said there's requesting 3 amendments, and then you got the First Amendment down here. So I didn't know if they were all, up here it says that we're requesting 3 amendments.
Oh, the First Amendment, I'm sorry, it's the title on here. That's what that's how he
So all
titled
that's
it.
wrapped into that one amendment.
Yeah, the title on
Okay.
the actual amendment, that's why he called it the First Amendment. First Amendment to the purchase agreement.
And actually, I think I did have one, but I put it on Lori's desk, so. anyways.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the purchase agreement.
We have a motion by Kufal, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Rose, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, anything under other or closing comments? If not, we will recess the regular meeting. We need to have a closed meeting. Meeting shall be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D regarding parcel 32.0817.110 and consideration of the purchase of real property. And also, the meeting shall be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 to discuss attorney-client privileged matters related to ongoing litigation in the matter of Wagenius versus City of Gaylord based on the city's need for absolute confidentiality to consider a litigation strategy related to substantive decisions affecting ongoing litigation.
So we recess the regular meeting right now.
So we're going to recess the regular meeting.